Welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us today. So let's begin our session with a wonderful quote. With carefully chosen words, you can reshape the world around you. Inspired quote, change your thoughts and you change your world. This quote by Norman Vincent Peale emphasizes the power of words in shaping our internal world, which can then influence how we perceive and interact with the external world. Good evening, everyone. I, Lakshmi, being your host for today's international webinar on the topic Transforming Your World with Words. Extend my warm greetings and a very good evening to all of you present here. Words wield immense power. Crafted with care, they ignite inspiration, spark motivations, and shape the realities we build. Through a storytelling, recent arguments, and honest communication, we can transform the world around us, one powerful message at a time. Talking about SEMS Welfare Foundation, we are a Section 8 not-for-profit company registered under the Companies Act 2013 with various recognition from Niti Aayog, MSME, MPCon, DTU, GKY, and more. Recognized as a startup by DIPP, MCI, and awarded Best Service Award for national contribution. SEMS grew up with an active network of 5,000 plus professionals, published books, and an international journal, organized education and health camp for underprivileged children, promoted digital and financial literacy, and contributed to society. Our initiative, Digi Saksham, has developed content for 300 plus courses in IT, BFSI, retail, entrepreneurship, impacting diverse age group. We have executed a skilling project for 600 inmates, signed MOUs for training, collaborated with various organizations, and conducted international conferences. FemLeads, another SEMS initiative, empowers women through workshops and newsletters, conducting awareness program in digital literacy, marketing, and career development across different industries. We have impacted over 1,000 women across states and recently celebrated a milestone of 100 women associated with the program. On behalf of whole SEMS family, I welcome you all for today's international webinar on transforming your world with words. And to add our guest of honor, today's speaker is Meera Swarup. It's a great honor to have you with us, ma'am. We are grateful for your presence here with us today. Miss Meera is an army child who was trained early on how to help people create an impactful first impressions that last. Being a coach and speaker for impact communication and executive presence, she helps business professionals gain impact and influence by shifting how they communicate and present themselves. Meera also delivers on her purpose through corporate workshops and speaking engagements on soft skills like being charismatic, creating likability, difficult conversation, influencing outcomes, business storytelling, business communications, and more. She has been particularly successful with companies in the consulting, IT, FMCG, and banking industries that are concerned about the impact of their employees, communications, and presence on their stakeholders. It's gratifying to create hand in glove training and the coaching modules that help her participants save time, attention, and money. Meera's intention is to simplify communication and presence for people in a way that allows borders to dissolve and communities to thrive.
Thank you so much, Lakshmi, for setting context, for aligning all of us, and also for the introduction. A quick confirmation. Lakshmi, can you hear me well?
Yes, ma'am. Yeah.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Good evening, everybody. For those sitting in India or any other part, it would be a different time for you. Thank you so much for being here today to bring your intention and attention towards working on your words. Allow me to share a little more background so that our conversation today becomes even more relatable. Even though Lakshmi introduced me, allow me to share something else. I like to call myself an army brat. And I say that because my father was in the forces and my grandparents were in the forces. And as a result of which, I've got a a chance to travel the length and breadth of the country. And I have had this opportunity to be able to gather a lot from across various spaces, the geography of our country. And it's been quite a jolly ride. And allow me to share this very briefly over this presentation because it just would come together. So while we walk through transforming our words, I'd like you to see that having been exposed to the forces while growing up significantly shaped a lot of who I am today. And I want to take this a little deeper as I go forward in this conversation. I wasn't always very clear about what I wanted to do, and therefore I did my bachelor's in biotechnology, I did my master's in clinical research, and I have worked in the healthcare sector for 10 years. So I literally do say that I was experimenting on humans because that's what clinical research is all about. I worked very closely with doctors to ensure that they did their research right. And something that came across really clear while on this journey of working so closely with doctors is that there's this joke in the pharmaceutical industry. Some of you may be aware of it. The joke is that among doctors, cardiologists think they are gods and oncologists think they are gods of gods. What I am denoting here is that it is perceived in the pharmaceutical industry that these are doctors with certain specialty who come with immense ego. And that tends to have people get very worried in front of people with authority, unsure of how to speak with them, how to be assertive. I'm grateful that I got the chance, literally as my first job, to be working closely with doctors who were way, way, way senior with me. And I was confronted with the opportunity to have difficult conversations with them where you had to tell a doctor that that particular patient that you enrolled in that trial is incorrectly enrolled and we will have to remove them. Now, these are hard conversations. And that's a significant part where I have learned a lot of what I offer to people today about being able to speak to people in authority and be able to have difficult and sensitive conversations. Going forward, one thing led to the other. I knew I was great at this, and yet there was something else calling out to me. I started my journey by being an etiquette and grooming trainer more than 12 years ago. Over a period of time, it has significantly evolved. And I now call myself a coach for executive presence and communication, as Lakshmi already introduced. But there's something that I'd like to share with you briefly. Over this journey that you just saw, there are 3 phases to this journey. Something that shapes a lot of what I do today significantly comes from the roots, which is the forces. And I want to clarify this for everybody. You see, when you see somebody walk into a room, and it's like, wow, everybody's head turns and looks at them. You find them very charismatic. And the first thought that tends to cross our mind is this person is born with this. They have it in them. The moment we say something like that or we think something like that, we immediately separate ourselves from the possibility of it even happening to you because you have instantly distanced yourself from that possibility. The moment you say they're born with it. When I was in the forces, I got a chance to see this, and I want to take you all through this quick journey. I got a chance to see a girl join the army. I got a chance to see a boy join the army. Now, please understand what joining means. Joining means the person was either literally born in the forces or was married into the forces or was commissioned into the forces. Could be anything. And I had a chance right from my childhood to see how a girl transformed into a lady and a boy transformed into a gentleman. And I'm being very careful when I use the word transform because it was not a change. You see, a butterfly doesn't change back into a caterpillar. That transformation that I saw really got me thinking that boy I saw transform has zero genetics when it comes to being well turned out and being presentable and knowing what to say, when to say. And that person belongs to some far distant village where there is no correlation to how we interact in a very, very refined setup. How does this person do it? And that's where I saw the internal drive. And that's when I learned, wow, no one's born with it. This is something you choose to develop inside you. And therefore, I had the opportunity to take this conversation forward. As I do this now, like I said, I've been doing this for more than 12 years. I regularly conduct corporate trainings. This is a good part of my life. Getting to do webinars like this also comes as a part of the conversation. So I'm really glad all of you have been able to join us today. Another talent that I like to talk about is that even if we've left clinical research behind, a part of me still has a researcher inside. Today, I practice the healing modality called batch flower remedies. And this is something that I have been learning for the last 5 years. I constantly practice this. And this is something that I offer to my participants when I'm coaching them. The intent is to work on them mentally, to work on their subconscious, to be able to have them be their maximum potential. So, among many things, that's what Bachelor Remedy works with. The other things that I'd like to share with you is that I also am a host on a podcast called Workwise with Naukri, where I get the opportunity to interview some fantastic people, get some super fantastic information regarding people and careers. I know that a lot of you here are committed to your careers, and that's why you joined. I'm also inviting you to log into those podcasts for you to have an even further enhanced journey. I've also been featured in BizBuzz for being an entrepreneur in the space of coaching. Going from here, I'm supremely committed that there be supreme value for all of you. And I intend to take you through a model which, when you shut your phones, when you shut your laptop, and you walk back into the world that you're walking in, you're able to actually take this model and apply it to 90% of the conversations you have. That's the kind of space where we're coming from. 90% of the conversations you have. That's the application. So let me set some further context for what's coming up now. You knew you were walking into a communication webinar. You knew this is going to be about words because that's what the title read. So I'm inviting all of you to take a moment, and you could do this on a piece of paper because it helps to have something written. Or you could, on the side of your phones, have a quick note section come up. And I'll tell you what I'd like you to take a moment to do. I'd like you to think of a challenging conversation that you recently had with someone. It could be as recent as today. It could be as recent as in the last 6 months. Think of a challenging conversation, and I'll give you a little idea of what a challenging conversation would look like. You possibly wanted an outcome from somebody. You went and had a request from the person. You had a wish for an outcome from the person, and either the outcome was not met, and therefore you were disappointed with how it all showed up. So you were disappointed in how that conversation went. It did not do so well. And you're wondering, how can these conversations become more effective because that outcome mattered to you? Or the other thing is that you were speaking to that person, and the outcome, after much argument and much altercation, was finally met. You did come to an outcome. But because the process with which you arrived there, you were so disappointed. Like, oh, this is not what I this is not how I want to be having these conversations every day. Can this be simpler? So I'm inviting all of you to think of a challenging, not so effective conversation that you recently had. Take a note of it. Or if you all are like really smart Sherlocks, keep it here. Keep it very, very ready. Because what's going to come up next would allow you to get even further context. So what I'm going to be sharing with you is what we call as the 5 chairs. The originator of this work is a lady called Louise Evans, and she's written a book. She also has a beautiful TED Talk. So this work that I'm sharing with you is severely inspired by her work, and you can refer to that as well. When we talk about the 5 chairs, this is what I'd like you to keep very present. You're going to be seeing 5 chairs on the screen that's coming up next. I'd like you to know that each chair will represent a particular thought, not a personality. I repeat, everybody, each chair will represent a thought or a way of thinking, but not a personality. So that means you are not stereotyped to a particular chair. I need you to know, just like in musical chairs, you will keep jumping around between these chairs, and you will not necessarily keep seated on one chair from conversation to conversation. That's how we all are. When we look at communication, our understanding of communication is the words that come out of our mouth, the words that go into our ears, and a little bit of body language and a little bit of tone. That's broadly our understanding of communication. In today's conversation, I'm going to have you see communication slightly differently. So instead of what's coming out of your mouth, we're going to go 2 steps behind, and we're going to see what's really happening here that drives the communication out of my mouth the way it does. That's the focus. Like I said, each chair represents a thought. So we're going to look at each chair. You can right now see a number and a color. Further, as you go to understand these chairs, you'll see that each chair will also have a particular animal, so that you get the analogy of what it means to communicate from that chair. In other words, I'm literally saying that in every conversation, You are sitting in any one of these chairs. Right now, when I'm speaking to you, I am sitting in one of these chairs, and I'll leave the guesswork for you after this webinar. Every conversation you do, you are operating from any one of these chairs. And if you can crack this, your ability to transform how you bond, how you collaborate, how you create from a conversation will shift. Your ability to persuade, your ability to influence starts to go to a whole next level once you start to practice the chairs. That's how powerful this model is. So I'm going to jump in right from the word go. Keep that concern in mind, keep that challenging conversation in mind while I'm taking you through this model. The first chair, represented as the attack chair, is represented by the animal, the jackal. Now, why the jackal? If we ever look at this particular animal in its natural habitat, you will notice certain attributes. It's a very sharp animal, extremely sharp listening skills, can hear something crawling at the far end of a field, has extremely clear eyes, can see to a really far distance. It has fabulous hunting skills, and it can also go without food for a long period of time. Now, even though this animal shows fantastic survival skills, I'd like you to see the other attributes it shows. It has extremely sharp hearing skills, which is very workable for it. But the moment it hears the slightest stimulus on the outside, it immediately comes into an attack crouching position. We still don't know is it threatful or what, but the animal immediately takes that position that it's going to attack, it's going to bounce. That is the jackal way of operating. Let's look at it in the human world. When I'm describing this, I want you to right now have the lens on yourself. It'll be very easy to be thinking of the other person in the conversation, but I'm really inviting you. Have the lens on yourself. When you're possibly in the red chair, you would notice yourself thinking. I'm not even talking about the words that are coming out of your mouth right now. I'm talking about your way of thinking. You will notice yourself judging, criticizing, blaming, or labeling. I repeat, judging, criticizing, blaming, or labeling the other person. Judging for, this is not the way they should be doing this. What they should be doing is dash. This is not how they should react. That's also criticism. Labeling. So the moment you would use phrases in your head like, how arrogant, how stupid, how dumb can they be? Who the hell do they think they are? That's us typically speaking in labels. So we would notice that there would be a dialogue running in our head regarding either the person we're interacting with or the situation where we are. And that starts to have an impact on how we are in that conversation. So all of you guys, I trust you. You would have probably the awareness that I shouldn't be using foul words and I shouldn't be calling people names. But this is the deal. Because we have a certain judgment or a criticism or a label for the person in our head, it immediately starts to show in our demeanor. And let me take you through this as an example. I'd like you to consider that you're in a room and you have a presentation to make to 5 or let's say 4 new stakeholders. Out of those 4 stakeholders, you do know one person. So let's say your credibility is well established with one person. The other 3 stakeholders are quite new. And you're in that presentation, you've just started to present your idea. You were aware what the room was looking for. You came prepared. You started the presentation. And in less than 10 minutes of you proceeding into the presentation, one of the people, for our reference right now, let's call this person Mr. Mehta. If there is a Mr. Mehta on the call, it's not you. We're really just making a fictitious name right now. So let's consider one of the stakeholders as Mr. Mehta, and you're presenting. You've barely gone 10 minutes in, and Mr. Mehta just jumps in and says, this is a rubbish idea. It's not going to work. And then as soon as he says this, there is pin drop silence in the room. And you can hear yourself think. When you're operating from the red chair, there's a good chance that the thought that crossed your mind is, who the hell does he think he is? How dare he? Now you're wise. You're not going to let it come out of your mouth. But because you're so offended by what happened, and you have a judgment for him, and you probably have a label for him, that in that moment, suddenly your body tenses up and you give this person one side look and you say, yes, Mr. Mehta, I can see that you have something to say. So you might keep a straight face, but the rest of your body is giving it away. Your tone is low, but there's a little sternness to it. And it's all coming because there is a thought that has you already bucket this person as a something. And then if you're trying to persuade this person, if you're trying to influence this person, if you came there with the purpose of getting a message across, your chances significantly reduce because instantly that person is no more an ally for you. That's an impact of being in the red chair. Allow me to go a little deeper with some more masala for you. This is my personal experience. If the red chair is all about judging, criticizing, labeling, and pardon me, I missed one. Judging, criticizing, blaming, and labeling. Blaming is it's their fault. They shouldn't have spoken like that. They shouldn't have interrupted me. All of those conversations. There is a fifth game the red chair really likes to play. And this game is called Who's Right? Let me share my personal experience. I needed a budget extension. I walk into my manager's room. She knows I'm going to be there. We set up time. I'm sitting in the room. I open up my laptop and I start off with, this is what the projection is. This is what I'd be looking for. This is what I'd like. And she starts to look through the sheet and she's like, oh, I would certainly have more money to give you if you were not partying every weekend. And I heard that and my neck went back like, what did you just say? What do you mean we party every weekend? And then I instantly started to clarify that, Soumya, we just partied last weekend because there was an external client coming in, and then our party before that was like 2 weeks ago because we completed an anniversary, but the one before that was like 2 months ago. What do you mean party every weekend? But as you can already imagine, the core intention with which I came to that room was to get a budget extension. But the moment I heard this whole comment on the party, I immediately changed tracks because I wanted to be right. I came there with an intention of budget, but that somehow just lost priority. I immediately shifted to, let me correct your facts right now. That is also a red chair game. When we get into this battle of, hey, who's right about this information? You didn't come at 12 o'clock. You actually came in at 12:05. You need to know your facts right, instead of actually jumping on the real conversation. So I've burnt my hands significantly on the red chair. I still sit in it quite often and I'll share more with you. But that's what happens when we're in the red chair because we're so consumed by what the other person is doing wrong. I also confess it's very fulfilling to sit in this chair. This is where the maximum gossip conversation comes out. This is where you want to grab your friend, take them to the tea room and just chat about what blunders they made or where they goofed up or who's really wrong and why shouldn't they have done this. It all comes from the red chair. It's very satisfying, but has an impact on your ability to influence whoever you hold a strong judgment, blame, criticism, or label for. I trust this was useful. Give me in the chat box if you saw value in this red chair conversation so far. I trust the chat room is open for everybody. Is that right? Thank you,
Yes,
Vijaya.
ma'am. Yeah. Yes.
Thank you. Got it. Brilliant. Okay, so we have a Vijaya respond to us. It would be very encouraging for me to understand if the red chair has been of value, of anyone, if you can see that there is an impact of the red chair on you. Thank you, Paranav. Really appreciate you sharing that. Super, Sapna. Thank you. Awesome. So now the red chair does what it does, and it has an impact on how we associate with somebody and how we relate to somebody. So the journey is to keep checking in on what am I really thinking about this person. So trust you me, when I sit down with people and I start to coach them and it's a conversation we're working on, the first thing we ask is, what are your thoughts about the person? What are your thoughts about the situation? And that's where the crux of our conversation really comes from. Now, if you've discovered the red chair and you've started to understand it, this is my opportunity to now take you to the next chair. The next chair is called the self-doubt chair. The self-doubt chair is represented by the animal, the hedgehog. The hedgehog is this cute fuzzy animal. If you ever place it in your hand and you let it sit here and you poke at it, if you just poke at it, it immediately rolls itself into a ball. And then you can't see the face or any other attribute of it. It's just a big round ball. To give you another analogy, if the red chair is all about judgment, criticism, labeling, blaming on the outside, the yellow chair is all about judgment, criticism, blaming, labeling on the inside. So all those moments where we think we goofed up, we didn't do something well enough, we don't know what needs to be done, we haven't got an idea of how things are to be operated, when we are doubting our ability, feeling underconfident, or just wondering if we have taken the right action, overthinking our own steps, that is us in the yellow chair. And that's also a possibility. You see, when Mr. Mehta says this is a rubbish idea, it's not going going to work. And if one of the first few thoughts that run through your head is, oh my God, I wish they had just sent Shalini for this. I don't have the ability to handle this presentation. I think this person will just see that I'm not capable of this. This is so scary, etc., etc. So these thoughts tend to rush by, and we're wondering how we're going to get past this. Our self-doubt shows in other forms as well. It's by our language use, where you say things like, I'm so sorry to take your time, or I'm so sorry to keep you waiting. I'm all for saying the word sorry. I'm genuinely all for saying the word sorry when you have literally hurt someone, where you know that what you did had the person feel extremely deeply hurt by your action or word. In all other places, if you notice that the other person may have been inconvenienced in any way, I'm inviting you, start switching your sorry to a thank you. So instead of saying, sorry, I'm taking your time, thank you for giving me your time. Sorry you had to wait for me. Thank you for being patient while I joined. I really appreciate this flexibility. I appreciate your understanding. Cause a significant shift. Watch your yellow chair. The more we tend to be apologetic, the more the yellow chair becomes even more pronounced. I am with you. Politeness is there. I'm with you. Let's be humble. Let's be respectful. Trust you me, instead of showing the light on what you did wrong, let's show the light on the greatness of the other person. Let's acknowledge them for being as amazing around you. That's what the yellow chair teaches us. I trust that was useful. And I trust that all of you have now started to see that in that challenging conversation that was not effective for you, which chair were you dancing in? Were you in the red? Were you in the yellow? Or were you in both? I'd love to hear it in the chat box. Does somebody want to share that here? Which chair do you think you were on? Okay, Parinav, seesaw, got it. It was half here, half there. Completely relatable. Yellow to become red. I completely get you, Kiran. Initially, you were on the back foot, but then you had to bounce back. Got you. Relatable, Lakshmi. Thank you. I see you, Sapna. Yes. Okay, Suraj, you were in neither. All right, so let's discover which chair probably were you operating from, and let's see if the other chairs show up for you. Got it. And yellow sometimes. Got it, Ghansham. Thank you for sharing. Excellent. So if you can relate to these chairs, and as Aditya also says yellow, we therefore want to wonder, okay, I want to make this conversation effective. I really want to be able to crack this relationship. I want to make sure that we are having tangible, progressive conversations. So we've got to find a way to jump out of these chairs. And jump out of these chairs and go where? So far, we've not known of any other situation. I'm with you, Vijaya. It feels that the other person is at fault. And possibly they are. At the same time, the question is, in the conversation, what part of it can you control? You can control who you become in that conversation. For now, I'm inviting you, watch which chair you were on. Were you in the red? Were you in the yellow? If you can catch that, your ability to transform how that conversation turns out could go to the next level. Or we might get stuck in trying to be right. Like who's wrong and who's right. So their fault, they're wrong, but it's not helping you to move forward. So with that, let's look at the next chair, because that's the pathway to having an alternate form of conversations. If these conversations don't fulfill you, the red and the yellow, you're probably looking for a different landscape. And that's why I'm inviting you to come to the next chair, which is called as the green chair. And this chair is represented by the animal, the meerkat. If you ever see this animal in its original habitat, it moves around in a grassland. It has a group of other meerkats it moves around with. The way this animal behaves is that it can walk on all four, but can also stand on two. So to just be upright like this and keep looking and looking and looking far into the distance. So I'm going to use the word, it just observes, observes, and observes. If this animal hears a different sound, it turns its head and it observes and it observes and it observes. What this animal does not do is, if it hears a sound, it doesn't immediately come into an attack position. Neither does it go run behind a rock. It stands there and just keeps observing to verify, to validate, what did I just hear? That is the power that I'm inviting you to bring. Whatever that challenging conversation, there may have been words spoken, or there might have been some conduct that did not work for you in that conversation. And that drove you to make a meaning, and you therefore went to the red chair or the yellow chair. And I'm inviting you to drive effectiveness into that conversation. It's important for us to start to perceive the conversation neutrally. So when Mr. Mehta says this is a rubbish idea, I could be in the red chair and say, who the hell does he think he is? When Mr. Mehta says this is a rubbish idea, I could be in the yellow chair and say, oh my God, I was just not meant to be here. But those are meanings that I'm making in my head. If when I'm in the green chair, I take the power of dropping that meaning. I drop the meaning that he's a jerk. I drop the meaning that I am the one who's not good enough. I drop the meaning in that moment and I just listen to the words and I let the words be. Mr. Mehta said, this idea is rubbish. Mr. Mehta said, this idea won't work. Mr. Mehta did not necessarily say, and nor does it mean that I am rubbish and my idea won't work. He did not say this as me. Even if he did, does it actually mean that? Not necessarily. All that I hear is words. And if I can just hold the word and not necessarily convert it into a meaning, I would have made a profound difference. Let me take a quick moment and have some of you visit a chemistry lab. If you had ever chosen chemistry as a subject in your 11th or 12th standard, you would go into a chemistry lab and you would get to work with chemicals. On your assessment day, there would be some 3, 4, 5 chemicals given to you in different beakers, and they would be just labeled A, B, C. And you would have to write that basis what experiment and what meaning did you determine what is A, what is B. So A, B, C, D right now are the stakeholders sitting in front of you. And you have just seen that A reacts when you add a different component to it. B turns pink in color and C starts to create an effervescence. And as you see these reactions from them, you start to name them as sulfuric acid or any other chemical that you can identify with. We do this, unfortunately, with human interactions too. What we learned in the chemistry lab, what we learned in our education system works fantastic for a good amount of things. But the moment when we put it into our human interactions, where we're like, I have to get the meaning of what this person is saying, and we start to derive and assume and push and punch, we lose the ability to create something powerful and meaningful. And therefore, you can ask me, Meera, but if I'm not supposed to make a meaning out of somebody saying this idea is rubbish, what am I supposed to do? I mean, how are you not supposed to make a meaning out of it? That's precisely why I'm inviting you to the next chair. So stay with me while I do this. The next chair is called as the detect chair. It's represented by the animal dolphin, and it is because nobody ever reported an angry dolphin. The adjectives that people use for dolphins are joyful dolphin, dancing dolphin, thriving dolphin, savior dolphin, show off dolphin. There are some fantastic labels about the dolphin. And when we relate this to the human world, we come in the presence of some fantastic people who, when we hear them in a difficult situation or we hear them in a speech or a conversation, we hear that this person just knows what to say, when to say, how to say. They somehow seem to have a lot of influence and a sense of presence when they're speaking, that even if the other party does not know them very well, they're able to generate a lot of respect for themselves within that situation. We've seen such individuals and we're unsure of how this operates. So we call them the dolphins because they're able to win hearts with much less credibility. Like, there's very little known about them, but the way they conduct themselves in front of people has us start to trust them more, be more influenced by them. They appear more persuasive. So what your question you should be asking me is, how does this blue chair person operate? How is somebody able to be persuasive when they are operating? Like, let's look at Mr. Mehta. The little formula of the blue chair I'd like all of you to know. Anybody in the blue chair always is aware about two things. What are they feeling and what do they need? I repeat, what are they feeling and what do they need? These people do not have a very extensive vocabulary like Shashi Tharoor. But if they have a vocabulary, it is for two things. What am I feeling in terms of an emotion? And what is it that I want as an outcome from the other person? In their vocabulary, they're also aware that the outcome may not look exactly like I asked, but I'm very flexible and I'm open to seeing how this could build. So when we're speaking to Mr. Mehta and Mr. Mehta said this is a rubbish idea, it's not going to work, it is but natural for the person who's presenting to feel disappointed or hurt. So the person instantly catches, yes, I am feeling disappointed, I am hurt, but what I really, really want right now, that means the next thing, what do you need? What I really, really need right now is an opportunity to be heard about the idea I'm presenting. And so, depending on the situation and the stakeholders in the room, one of the places the presenter could go to is, Mr. Heda, I can sense that you have a concern and I can imagine it must be real. I'm inviting you to give me the next 5 minutes to show a real case as to where something like this was executed and brought to life. Would you be comfortable with 5 minutes? This is one of the ways, not the only way, that you could push back what you want. Instead of dancing in the red or the yellow chair, either blaming them or blaming self. Because the blue chair is all about shifting from what you think about that person or what you think about yourself. We shift from those thoughts and we jump to what am I feeling and what would I like in this moment? Not what I should be getting, not what they should be doing. What would I like in this moment? And that clarity allows them to articulate their thoughts. If you saw power in the blue chair, I know this is debatable because you're like, hey, Mira, but it's stakeholders, it's not really going to help if I just bulldoze my way in. And therefore, I'm inviting you, depending on your credibility in the room, depending on the stakes in the room, you can choose whether you want to operate from the blue chair or the other chair that I'm inviting you, which many of you must have already walked. I believe you've all walked these chairs. Let's look at this. This is the purple chair. It's also called as the connect chair, and it's represented by the animal giraffe. Why the giraffe? This animal is the only land animal with the longest neck. So that means that this animal has the ability to see much beyond what's happening right here. Its ability to see to the far distance. That means in the human world, you will not see a conversation in isolation. You will see that how I choose to have this interaction with this person would have consequences as we go forward. Your presence of mind for every conversation, becoming very, very aware that this is all leading up to something. And so I am watchful of what I'm saying, not just like holding my words back, but probably deliberately creating a conversation so that I connect with this person better, so that I have a more fruitful relationship going forward. It's not just a standalone conversation. The second reason we choose the giraffe, this is the only land animal with the largest heart. And for us, that represents empathy. If we're looking to have influence and ability to persuade and be able to create a stronger impact in a conversation, we need to have a balance of the blue and the purple chair. And in the purple chair, when I speak about empathy, allow me to make it more tangible for you, because people can tend to have their own versions of what it means to be empathetic. Allow me to give you this version that is practical for us to apply. If the blue chair is all about identifying what you are feeling and what you need, the purple chair is all about identifying what the other person needs, what the other person is feeling. That's the game changer. So I could be busy blaming Mr. Mehta for being a jerk, or I could immediately switch chairs, quick hop, skip, jump, and arrive at the purple chair and say, Mr. Mehta, I'm going to put my presentation aside. Something from your experience tells this is not going to work. I want to know what is it that indicates to you that this is not a good idea. The purple chair doesn't challenge. The purple chair inquires. The purple chair shows curiosity. The purple chair genuinely wants to make ideas work and therefore needs to know all sides of the conversation. Some of you sitting here might feel, oh God, who's got the time to have such long drawn conversations? Why can't it be like, I said this, you do this, you said this, I do this, done. As you get into more influential positions, life is not going to be like a Lego book giving you clear-cut instructions on what to do, how to do. As your positions in life go forward, some of you may be CEOs from a boardroom, know exactly well that all conversations cannot be scripted and cannot be laid out exactly how you wish they would be. Which is why the awareness of when am I intending to be assertive and when am I intending to be curious and empathetic is determined by feelings and needs. In the blue chair, mine, in the purple chair, theirs, and the tango just goes on between them and me. Folks, thank you so much. I trust this conversation has helped for you to start to transform your conversations and be able to create something from there. I am now opening the floor for questions, if any. Thank you, Vijaya. Thank you for chiming along. And thank you, Vijay. Yes, exactly. The green chair is not being lost in the judgment, but just observe without deriving meaning. Bang on. Thank you for putting that in the chat box. Lakshmi, would you like to invite people for questions?
Sure, ma'am. Sure. So, yeah. Wow. Thank you for such a nice session, ma'am. I hope our audience learned a lot of new things from this session. So I would like to highlight few of the points, like the 5 chairs, which involves judging, criticizing, blaming, labeling, and thinking. And these chairs are all of a different colors. So one chair is red chair, red in color, which is used for attacking, and yellow chair is for self doubt, and green is for weight. So now coming to the blue chair, which is the detect chair, it basically emphasizes the way how we shift our thought process to get more clarity on what we want. And the purple chair, which is the last, which is used to connect with others. So these words have the power to shape our thoughts and beliefs. Words can inspire and motivate others. Words can build bridges and foster understanding. Words can also be used for advocating the changes. Ma'am, there are few questions which our audience wants to be answered. So can we take with your permission?
Absolutely, absolutely. Please, Lakshmi.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you, ma'am. So, like, what is the one thing that everyone should change?
What is the one thing that everyone should change?
Yes.
I would need a little more context to that question. Did somebody ask that?
Yes, ma'am. So, like, one thing that everyone should change, you can take it in,
Okay.
like in the chairs.
Okay,
Yes.
got it. Okay, I'm going to answer this question slightly differently.
Uh-huh.
So the fantastic book that I'm reading, which is I've recently finished reading it. There are two books in sequences. One book is called The Courage to Be Disliked, and the
Mm-hmm.
second book is called The Courage to Be Happy. And
Okay.
it is by the author Ichiro. Pardon me, I wouldn't know the full name, but they're two Japanese authors, and it's a fantastically written book for anybody looking to work on their interpersonal skills and be able to find a better understanding of how to be more effective in their ways of interacting with others. There is a conversation around how once upon a time Mother Teresa was asked, "You do so much of work around, being able to bring world peace and really be able to bring a sense of calmness among people and their minds." So the question to Mother Teresa was, what is your advice to the world? What do you recommend people do to bring world peace? And the only thing she said is just go back home and love your family. That's it. So when you ask me this question, Lakshmi, like what should everybody change? I'm inviting you to use these principles of the chairs with your people at home. It's going to be easy to call your son lazy when they don't wake up at like 6 a.m. And then through the day, you kind of like just labeling them using those words,
Ah,
calling them undisciplined, irresponsible. Those are the labels that we use. It's going to be easy calling your spouse insensitive because they missed to ask you something essential you were expecting them to. And I'm inviting you, jump to an alternate chair. Figure, do I want to ask for what I want? Then I'm operating from the blue chair.
mhm.
So you're calling the person lazy and say, hey, I'd love
Ah,
to be able to see you wake up at 6 o'clock every day so that you can go for your badminton class. I'm worried you're not developing to the fullest. That's my feeling. How can we make this happen for you? What do you think about it? That's you operating from the purple chair,
yeah.
right? So I'm
Yes,
inviting
ma'am.
everybody. You want to bring a change? Let's start using this at home.
Yeah. Sure, ma'am. So, how to deal with people who are really egoistic and rude on face, though we ensure it as per our need, like with doctors. But is there anything we can do?
Okay, I think, yeah, I did see this question.
It's there in the chat box only.
How to deal
Yes,
with
ma'am.
people who are really egoistic and rude in the face, though we ensure it as per our need, like with doctors. But is there anything we can do? Okay, so Vijaya, this question gets answered in context. It depends on the context. If you're traveling by train and a passenger who's passing by bumps into you and then acts really rude and just snarls back and says something that, you're like, hey, how dare you, or why didn't you watch where you're going? In that moment, a quick assessment, does this person's view on you matter? A quick assessment, does this person's view on you matter? If it doesn't, you wouldn't bother entangling yourself further in that conversation because it doesn't matter. That person did what they did. And something that I have learned through practice is that the way people choose to interact with us is often an indication of their relationship with themselves. I repeat, the way people choose to interact with us is an indication of their own relationship with themselves. That's pretty much how they actually treat themselves. It's only in the outside world do they tend to treat others like this. So if the person who is being rude with you, if that person, you have little stake with that person's not a stakeholder, the person really doesn't matter in the context of things. It's like a neighbor sitting somewhere, said something random, doesn't really matter. My invitation, let's walk away. There's really no point in trying to be right and wasting your energy. But if it's a stakeholder and the person's point of view matters, their person's point of view matters about what they think of you. It also matters to you what do they think about the work you do. It matters to you what they think about the project that you're handling. If that person is of high stake for you, this could be not necessarily at work. This could be a father-in-law in the house. This could be a mother-in-law in the house. This could be somebody of important stature in the house. If they matter, then my invitation to you is practice the purple chair to the fullest. You would have, depending on context, one or two opportunities where you can be forgiving of how a person interacted with you. Maybe they were rude, maybe they did what they did, and you would have a limit to how much are you comfortable with this person doing it. Was it a one-off thing, or is this the routine thing they do? If you start to notice that it's a routine thing, I'm inviting you to have an upfront conversation with them in private. They may be doing it out there in the open, but I'm inviting you to have an upfront conversation in private from the blue chair. That, hey, when you spoke this, I felt hurt, I felt diminished because my need is to be respected in a setting like this. When you speak like that, I get impacted by how everybody else sees. Please, can we maintain a little respect? I hope that helps, Vijaya. Thank you for being patient while I respond.
So, ma'am, thank you for answering it. One more question is, it's again from the chat box. After understanding this, we can change the chair, but how can we invite others to change the chair so they can have the right perspective?
Okay, got it. Kiran, thank you for that question. After understanding this, we can change our chair. Fabulous, Kiran, if you can start changing your chair. How can we get them to change their chair? Kiran, if you. So there's this beautiful scene from a movie. I can't really remember which movie it was, but there was this guy who was trying to convince this girl to consider marriage. And the girl's like, yeah, but I don't seem to be finding the right kind of people. And, I get out, I meet people, they're like really rubbish. I don't think I want to get married like this. These people can't be trusted. And then he gives her this analogy. You seem to be stuck on this whole marriage thing, like you have a car that's parked in your garage, but you don't want to bring the car out of the garage till all the signals are green that day. So, Kiran, I'm right now seeing a condition. Hey, I'm going to get into this conversation. I'm going to practice the chairs, and that person also has to practice the chairs. So, I'm inviting you, Kiran. I see your interest. Of course, you want to persuade. Of course, you want to influence people to shift their stand. But the first stand where you begin comes with zero expectations. You have learned the science. You, if I may say, is the awakened one. You're the one who's taking responsibility of which direction this conversation goes to. If they choose to not tag along with your politeness, with your tact, with your sensibility, with your sensitivity, you're bringing your best in the conversation, and they're not willing to tag along, is not your life task. You can influence, you can persuade, provided you show consistency in your way of speaking. If you appear like a fair weather friend, like, okay, today I attempted to speak to you nicely, but you did not say yes. So tomorrow I am going to take your case. Tomorrow I'm going to be like, I am done being angel. Today I am demon because you're not changing. And if you're not changing, I'm not getting into the chairs. So Kiran, I'm inviting you. It's going to be initially a lonely journey. Not everyone shifts, not everyone transforms. It's something you do consistently establishing trust with the other person. This is your way of communicating. You will operate from the blue chair, you will operate from the purple chair, and you. Yep, thank you.
Then which skill we adopt for career?
Sorry, pardon me. Is that a question?
Which skill? Yes. Which skill we adoption for career?
I'm a big fan of communication. So communication skills would be your best investment for your career. Yes.
No, but other than communication, is there anything which is important?
Okay, so I highly recommend when I'm doing a workshop, I'm highly recommending if you're deliberately wanting to work in the scope of developing your skills for career, my invitation to you is under the scope of communication, Business storytelling is a beautiful skill set to develop. It adds to your ability to persuade and influence people and help them think in a different way. So, when I give you the traffic signal story, when I give you the Mr. Mehta story, when I was sitting with my boss story, you tend to visualize and imagine, and that makes the conversation effective. Second, personal branding. How do you showcase yourself as a personal brand? How do you leave a sticky feeling in others about you? If you can ever build on these skills, it would be very, very powerful. Third, extremely essential, emotional intelligence. If you get a chance to ever sit for a lecture or a proper workshop on emotional intelligence, please sign up for it. It is going to be your saving grace. That purple chair and the blue chair will get so significantly developed if you get a hang of emotional intelligence. I hope that answers.
Yes, ma'am. Yeah, thank you, ma'am. So the next one is someone is asking you to tell more about green chair.
Tell more about green chair from your
Green
department.
chair.
Okay. I'm sitting in my workspace. I am an employee in an organization. My boss walks in through the door, and today I was supposed to have an appraisal conversation. But as soon as the boss walks in through the door, I quickly meet gaze, and the boss doesn't greet me. In fact, just storms past me, goes to their cabin and shuts their door, more like bangs their door. The event that I just described is a neutral description. I'm sitting in my chair. I saw the person walk in. They didn't make eye contact with me. They went past. They went to their room. It is my head that makes a meaning. This person is upset with me. It is my head that makes a meaning. This person had a fight with his manager or his spouse. The more we can just observe the events neutrally and also observe that a meaning got made. Therefore, we can separate ourselves from the meaning. Therefore, we can separate ourselves from the red chair and walk further into the red and the yellow chair. If you can see yourself make a meaning, that means you are now able to watch yourself in that chair. If you can watch yourself in that chair, that means you're starting to separate from it and be able to walk out of it. So the green chair is to have you learn to watch which chair are you on and then be able to take a path to the next chair by switching. What do I want from this conversation? What am I feeling? What do I need? What do I want to ask? What are they feeling? What do they need? What do I need to determine? I hope that was helpful. Thank you, Azhar, for asking.
Yeah, thank you, ma'am, for such a nice answer. And yes, of course, that was helpful. And now the next question is how impact communication can be helpful at a personal level.
All over.
I know, but can you please brief a little bit more about it?
All over. Yes, precisely. On a personal level, impact communication, if I'm particularly talking about the 5 chairs, it has significantly helped me have very sensitive conversations with my daughter. It has allowed me to have sensitive conversations where there can even be a conversation about her possibly showing interest in a child of another gender, or there can be a conversation about how she is hurt by something I said, or if she isn't as interactive as she is usually, we're able to create a space where we can have a deeper vulnerable conversation with her, so that there are lesser secrets between people, so that there is more willing to connection between people. That's the place where I see that the 5 chairs have significantly helped interacting with my loved ones, whether it's my spouse, whether it's my child, whether it's my parents, whether it's a dear friend, some relative. Just operating with clarity, identifying how much does this person really matter in my life, and if I want this person to have continued interaction with me, then I'm going to have.
That's very good.
Yeah.
Yeah. So thank you, ma'am. And one more question is a problem of farmers and government formula resulted into conflict in India. So which chair farmers and government occupies?
Right. See, now, Ghanshyam, I usually stay away from political debates. I really do. And in this case, again, I'd like you to know when we are standing so far away, we're not exactly in the room where the conversation happened. I apply the 5 chair formula specifically for the room where the conversation happened. So if there was a particular situation in which there was a request put it, which sounds like a demand to somebody, or in the other place where the request was denied and that gets perceived as oppression, it depends on who was speaking, it depends on who was listening. So from where I'm seeing this conversation, I wouldn't pass a judgment on, oh, they're sitting on the red chair, they're sitting on the yellow chair. The only person I have a license to pass a judgment on is the person who comes for coaching, sits with me, takes me through their conversation, and then I outright tell them, buddy, I hope you can see you're operating from the red chair. So I wouldn't judge them, but I'll judge somebody who's committed to their transformation. I hope that helps, Kancha.
Ma'am,
Okay, madam. Thanks, madam.
Thank you.
yes, ma'am, they are also asking for the book name which you have shared during the session.
Yes, it is Courage to be Disliked. That's the first one. And if you really, really like how the book flows, because it's a dialogue between two people, the book is fantastic to read. The Courage to be Disliked. And the second one, which is a sequence, is called The Courage to be Happy. This is the book I read. Yes.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am. We had that was a very good piece of advice to us. So yeah, again, thank you all for attending today's webinar. And if you have any additional questions, you can contact us by email or telephone. We are happy to provide additional support to you. Please follow us on our social media and subscribe to our YouTube channel for new learning.